Come on, y'all.
Hey, hands to go.
Welcome to the Cheer Chronicles podcast with Rosie.
Welcome, everyone, back to the Cheer Chronicles podcast, and I am so excited. She doesn't need any introduction, you guys. Cheer mom herself, Kristen, is with us today. How are you?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Me too. And we've met. We just talked about
At the showcase.
At the showcase.
I was
2 years
surprised
ago.
this year. I went to the Infinity Champions League competition in Tampa,
Mhm.
and I decided to do that instead of the Top Gun showcase because I figured that all of the Top Gun teams would be there anyway. It turns out I was wrong, and
Yeah.
that's okay.
They're
But
at the
the Top
showcase.
Gun families that were there were like, "Why didn't you come to our showcase? We were looking for you." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, I every year I try to make a business case for going to Top Gun's showcase because I have so much fun and you guys are amazing. So I'll try to convince my business manager, aka my husband, that it's a good idea.
I know my husband who edits all the podcasts and does all the work.
Oh,
Same
he does a
thing.
great job. The sound effects and good job, husband. That's awesome.
All right, let's get into our first question. So, at what age did your daughter begin cheering, and when did you become a cheer mom? This is going to go into my first three questions, but that's the biggest fear of mine is to be the team mom for the team, and
Okay.
and
Yeah.
and forget someone, or I didn't get this, or I didn't coordinate this correctly. Are you just a cheer mom? Are you the team mom? How does that work?
So my daughter started tumbling when she was 7. And one thing led to another. She started a trampoline and tumbling on a trampoline and tumbling team at a cheer gym in Texas. Well, it was, basically a cheer gym. And you know how it goes. The gymnastics or the tumblers or whoever, if they have multiple disciplines at the gym, are always looking over at the cheerleaders and going like, what's that about? So the rest is kind of history. We actually, just as she was starting her first year of cheer, we moved from Texas to Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny because Abby, my daughter, was just on my show, and her memory of how she ended up on a cheer team in Colorado is very different from mine because it wasn't like she was begging to be on the cheer team, but in my memory, she didn't want to do the all around gymnastics. She really was solely into tumbling. She's like, I don't want to do balance beam. I don't want to do bars. And it happened that gymnastics gym was starting its first cheer team. And so we said, okay, well, if you're going to do gymnastics, you're going to have to at least try all of these things. If not, you should do cheer. So and that was more my husband pushing that. I was like, I don't want her to do cheer. I did not have, as most people, did not have a terrible experience with the cheerleaders in my high school, but like none of them were my friends. And then, the stereotype of the cheer mom and the stereotype of I remember saying, if they start showing her belly button, we're out of here. So joke's on me on that one, but they started me in slow. So she started at what we would call a D2 gym. They had one team with athletes that had skills from like less than level 1 all the way up to like level 5. So that was her first experience, our first experience with cheerleading. And it's funny because I love the way you phrase that question. It's like, when did you become a cheer mom? I would say it took me 2 or 3 years before I was fully bought into cheerleading. Now, I was there for my daughter, and I helped do the other girl's hair, and I was there screaming loud, but I did not really buy into the concept of all-star cheer until she was at a D1 gym. And then even then, probably her second year, I remember there was a coach that was like, yeah, like we're a family here,
Yeah.
and cheer parents that I coached their kids years ago. Now we're lifelong friends. And I remember, and I'm not proud of this, but I remember the inner eye roll that I was like, oh my gosh, like I have friends. I don't need lifelong
Anymore.
cheer
Yeah.
coach friends. Again, the joke's on me because I now have lifelong cheer coach friends. So, it took a couple of years, and I don't even think that if you would have asked me then, I don't think I would have really admitted it. It wasn't until my daughter was in like 8th grade and several years in that my husband threatened to take away cheer. And I was like, if you punish her with that, you're punishing me. And I was like, oh, what just came out of my mouth? Like, so yeah, it took a few years for me to consider myself a cheer mom. And even then I didn't really consider myself the stereotypical cheer mom. I sat by myself a lot. I never complained, even at times when I maybe should have spoken up. But that's how long it took me to buy in.
Yeah. I feel for me, my oldest began just tumbling. Now, she happened to be at school in the first grade, and her PE coach was like, "Hey, we're starting a little competitive cheer team." And again, whoever showed up that year got on the team. She didn't
Yeah.
know how to do anything, no cartwheel, nothing. And so she, she did her two little competitions, super cute. But she loved it. So then, she was like, I want to start to tumble and do the things. And we went to Top Gun, and she did tumbling there probably till she was about 8 or 9. And one of her tumbling coaches was like, we could really use her on a team. And I was like, cheer is expensive. I can't
Mm.
afford to do this and all the traveling, and oh no, she'll be fine. So at 9 years old, she joined a level 2 team, the Snipers, and there was 31 girls on that team.
Oh my
And she
gosh.
was like the youngest or second to youngest, but she's a pretty good tumbler. So that's mostly what she did, because even with the sun, she couldn't reach him. She wasn't a flyer. And the bases were a lot taller than her. Um, but yeah, I have to say that it took a long time for me to get to know the parents, get to know, feel like, and of course, with Top Gun, that's like their thing, right? Once a family, always a family. And it took me a long time to get into knowing everyone and personalities. But I have to say now, and I've never been a team mom for any of those teams. I have to say now, there is not one day or a circumstance that I don't call one of my Top Gun moms that they don't show up for me. This past weekend, my team that I coach at my daughter's school, we had states, and my husband missed my daughter's hair appointment, and she needed to have 2 Dutch braids, and she's mixed, so doing her hair isn't a
It's a
it's not the
process.
easiest. Yeah.
It's a
So
process.
he missed it, and it was all the way in Naples. It was gonna take us like an hour to get there, an hour to get back. We needed to drive to Orlando. I called one of my cheer moms from Top Gun. She was like, "Come to my house, 20 minutes. Boom, done." It's like,
Wow.
yeah. Not too long ago, I had
Yeah,
an ear
I think
infection.
that I may have done myself a disservice by I have a really hard time asking for help,
Mhm,
and I think that it was partly I counted myself out. I just assumed I wouldn't fit in, and a lot of these moms were already friends because their kids went to school together, or their kids started tumbling or cheering when they were like 2 or 3.
mhm,
So I can't say that I really had that experience or knew that the cheer moms would be there for me until my daughter had a season-ending injury,
mhm.
and they showed up for my kid and they showed up for me, and people that I never thought even knew my name were texting
Mhm.
me late at night and saying, "Hey, like, I know this is the hard part." And that was the moment that, oh, wow, like I have not been engaged or fully appreciated. These people really do want to show up for us.
Yeah.
So bravo to you for recognizing that right away.
Yeah. I mean, it took me 2 years, to really feel like I could
Yeah.
go up to them and ask questions um but yeah, I mean, they're a pretty cool group. I know people from the outside are probably like, "These parents." There's nothing like cheer parents, I feel like even in other sports, cheer parents are something else. Just because 'cause we're so loud and it's just 110% all the time, I feel like, but, um
Yeah, but softball parents, volleyball parents, baseball parents, there's some humdingers in there too, and they're loud too.
Mhm.
And I don't know why cheer moms get such a bad rap, but
They do. We
it's in
do.
multiple sports that they have crazy
Yeah.
parents.
We do get a bad rap, though. So you were never like a team mom
I
designated to the
was
team?
I
You
was
were?
a team mom. Yeah, that's a whole other story. So I remember I wanted to be like the room mom always for my kids, and I was the first couple of years. And I would do things like, "Hey, you don't know how to do French braids? Like, come over to our house early. It's not a problem. I can do it. I love doing it. I love talking to the girls." But I was like, I could never be team mom. I could never be the team rep. And I just I don't know why. I just thought like I don't think I could learn all the girls' names,
Mhm.
all of the things that you worry about, until I had a team mom one particular year who was a fantastic communicator. And I was like, "Oh, so all of this is just gathering the information that the coaches give you and making sure that the parents have it and understand it, like distilling it down and giving it to them in, parent speak." And
Mhm.
so it's more about for me at least, when I thought about it more as communication rather than like being like the Betty Crocker team mom with orange slices and water after every practice or whatever, I could I was like, I can do that. So
Yeah.
then I was team mom, I think every year for I think it was 4 years that I was team mom. And for the most part, they wouldn't let me say no. They didn't have to twist my arm too hard, but they were like, "Will you please come back?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm gonna play coy for a minute, but yes." So, and then my daughter's last year of cheer, I ended up being the team rep coordinator
Oh,
at our
wow.
gym, where I was the one giving the team reps the information, and I'm like, "Guys, it's just about communication, and it's just all of you are going to have different strengths, and it's easy to remember the girls' names, and here's what you do, and here's what you need on competition day, and here's our traditions, and I'm going to go scope out the spots in advance and kind of give you the spots where we can meet." It's just things like that. It's just anticipating and communication.
So wait a minute. You were like the team mom for the team moms?
My last year, yes, at Cheer
I've
Athletic
never heard
Center.
that before. That's
There
awesome that
are
they
a
have that.
couple, yeah, so, CA Denver still has a team rep coordinator who's I wanna say she's on staff, I might be wrong about that, but when they merged with Cheer Central Suns, now they have, like, tons and tons of teams, so they need somebody who can handle that, and, so that you can let the coaches coach. And then I know that there are a few other big gyms that do that, that there's a parent that the owner or director completely trusts that can either be in certain group chats or on certain calls, or in my case, my director, we just had like a one-on-one every, I don't know, Tuesday, where it's like, here's everything that's happening. okay, so what do parents need to do this week? And then we talked once a week anyway.
Yeah.
And so it was just like she would give me the information and know that I had it handled. And I had been there long enough and knew how she operated where I could be like, hey, I have the schedule. Do you want me to do the report time, warm up time, all of that? So it's more like if you're good at being a personal assistant or an activities director, or you
Yeah.
are organized and good at communicating, that's really all that a team rep is. Because I even said, I was like, I'm not good at crafts. I don't have a Cricut.
Right.
I don't know how to sew. I don't know any of those things. And my director was like, don't even worry about that. You have so and so and so and so on your team. All you have to do is ask them and they will have it handled. And she was so right. It was like, hey, I've never done this before, so I'm going to need help with this and this. And like, I'm looking at you and I'm looking at you. And they were like, I got you. And they did for years. So
Yeah,
you
that's
don't
my
have to
thing
do it
too.
all.
Yeah, that's my thing. I'm not crafty. I'm more of the Venmo mom. Just tell me.
Yes. Yeah, I'm the Venmo mom and the paper plates mom. Like, I will sign up for paper
Oh.
plates. I will Venmo you.
Mhm.
I would rather pay you twice what you're asking me, sometimes more,
Yeah.
to not have to have even just like the mental energy
To
to
think
think
about.
about
Yeah. I
making
do I
something with
do
gumdrops
Venmo.
during Christmas.
I do Venmo and I do Krispy Kreme donuts.
Totally.
Yeah.
I can do the Starbucks order. Tell me your Starbucks order. I
Mhm.
can put it in my app. I've got you there. But like, I was, and I appreciate the Venmo mom. Even as a team rep, I appreciated the Venmo mom. They're like, just tell me how much, and I'd be like, between 10 and $20. They're like, did I hear you say 100? Here you go. So, the Venmo moms, if you're gonna Venmo, you do have to be generous. Don't give 100 when it's only 10, but
Right.
make them remember you for the Venmo.
The Venmo mom. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your podcast. How do you decide on your topics for your episodes? Is it just as things are going on and what's happening? Or I mean, I assume now maybe people are reaching out like, hey, I want to be on your podcast, or can you be on mine like me?
I do get I do get some people reaching out. I think that the topics for me, it started out as just things that I wanted to know about and behind the scenes. And I'm like, I wonder how they do this and why do they do it like that? And I didn't really, and I still don't really know the ins and outs of the industry. So it's more just being curious about how things work. And then it's between that and just talking about my own personal experiences as a cheer mom. And when I started out, I was like, well, that's dumb. Like, nobody's going to want to hear about that. But I did an episode on like hair and makeup tips and what I've learned throughout the years. And it was a huge episode. And so it just kind of, as things come to me, I'll write it down and I'll either decide if it's something that I have experience in that if I feel confident to talk about, or I'll try to find an expert. And so now that it's a little bit more established, it's been a little bit easier to get
Yeah.
the expertiest experts, if you
Mhm.
will. But yeah, it's more just like I learn something new every podcast episode.
Yeah.
So that's how I decide.
Speaking of hair and makeup, what's your favorite? Are you more of a braids or do you like the big ponytail?
I did a whole episode on this. I like the two braids that end in ponytails.
Same.
I
Same.
really love that look. I respect the huge teased high pony. That is a work of art if you do it well. But I like sporty, athletic, and pretty. And I feel like the braids into the pigtails accomplish that.
Yeah. My daughter this year, well, and she did it last year when I coached her. Now she's on a varsity team, and they went to UCA and they did game day, and that's my favorite cheer is game day to compete in and all the things. And she said when we got there, she's like, we all look the same, because it's a mid pony, very
Yeah,
sweet
with the
little
bow.
bow. And I'm like, I like this better. I like it better. I love the braids. That's what my teams do. 2 braids down to a ponytail, Dutch braids.
Mhm.
This
Mhm.
year for their all-star teams, they're doing high pony with the tees, big, huge, and then the curls, which is hard when your kids already have curly hair.
The teased high pony has been the big trend this season, especially. I know TGLC is doing it. My daughter's team is doing it. And I mean, it's impressive,
Mhm.
but I mean, it really does a number on your hair too.
I know.
So
And
each to his own.
for showcase, I failed. It looked like she would move and it was just one big and it was flat. I just failed. I felt for the other comp, their first comp, it looked a little better. My daughter told me, "You ate that." So that's a good thing when they tell you that.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. So I've learned.
Yeah. So I ate it. So that's a good thing.
Ate it.
She was like, "You ate that." So
I saw in one of the Facebook groups, you might have seen it too, but there was a mom on a Monday morning who was like, if you were at such and such competition and you got a pin that says eat the mat,
I did.
that
I
was
saw that.
from it was from my 6-year-old or whatever. And I screenshotted and saved that. That was like, and everyone thought it was just adorable because we knew what she meant.
Mhm. There's some though that are
Didn't
bad.
quite.
There's some
Right.
pins
Well,
that
eat the mat is bad, but if you ate with the
yeah, if
past
you ate,
tense,
it's good.
then
Yeah.
it's good. But I thought that was so cute.
Yeah. I love those, I'm part of that Facebook group too. I love some of the things that I'm like, "Whoa, that's intense."
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
saw
there's
one,
some
what do you do if your daughter's cheer coach shows up drunk
I saw that.
and he's
I didn't
also
even
the
wanna
owner?
click
I'm
into
like,
that.
"You leave the gym. You leave the gym. Leave it."
Well, my first question, and I didn't wanna
I
insert
never
myself into the
answer.
conversation, but my first question, and somebody probably asked it, but like how do you know they were drunk? And
Mhm,
how can you prove that? So I tend to not engage with some of those unique questions. I have a Facebook group associated with the podcast and the blog, and we recently got an intense question that I have a team of 2. It's my husband and somebody else who's very involved in the group, and we talk about posts that we should we approve this? Should we deny this? Like, what do you guys think? And I really had to sit on that one question. I really had to sit on this one anonymous post that I was like, I don't think that that's going to accomplish the productive conversation that we like to have.
mhm.
And she was like, well, do you have any advice on where to ask it? And I was like, that's a really good question. Let me think about that.
Yeah.
Because yeah, because like I don't want the cheer mom community to like come after you for asking this question, but also like it's a good point. So let's think on that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah,
The
some of those.
Facebook groups are wild. And I also get ideas for content in Facebook groups too. I'm gonna do a whole episode on the we listen and we don't judge because that was just I was so entertained by that.
Okay, next question. What has your most memorable or impactful podcast episode been so far?
It's a tough one. Um, the most impactful, and it's hard to know what's impactful, right? Because with
Mhm.
podcasts,
You never know.
Spotify has a new feature where you can comment. If I remember to put it up on YouTube, you can comment. But for the most part, people are just listening. And once you're done consuming the content, you're on to the next thing. So unless someone comes up and talks to me about a certain episode that really impacted them, it's hard to know the most impactful. I would say if I'm judging by the numbers, the episode, I did like a 2-part episode on when everything went down with Rockstar Cheer and Scott Foster. And I
Mhm.
broke that down, and that has more shares and downloads times 5 or 10 of any other episode. So I would say that put me on the map, and I was really surprised because I really did not want to do that episode, and I really struggled that whole weekend with recording that because it was just so heavy, and I'm like, I don't even know if I'm doing this right.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm doing this well. So I would say that was an impactful one. If we're talking about impact or favorite for me, that's also hard to choose. I can't pick just one. There's so many that I've loved the conversation with Justin Carrier,
Mhm.
and getting to pick his brain about cheerleading. Jeff Webb was on the show, and I really had a great time talking to him, and his team and I have kept in touch since then, and that's been a thrill. I loved the Rosarios,
Mhm.
and so having Kristen on was such a treat. And I also have some guests coming up that I've wanted to ask them specific questions since before I started the podcast.
Oh,
So
wow.
there are impactful episodes for me that haven't even aired yet. So
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah, I heard the one with the Rosarios. They're awesome people.
yeah.
Um, okay, how do you balance being informative and entertaining for your audience? And again, it's tricky, right? Because I feel the same. I'm like, nobody's gonna listen to this. And granted, I have like 2 listeners to be honest, but sometimes I'm like, I don't know, should I waste a whole weekend on doing this or is anyone gonna listen? Does anyone care?
Yeah, so I don't really think of it as balancing between entertainment and informative. I think that that's a good point. And I guess if I were looking at it from like a clinical perspective, I always try to start the episodes with just some kind of funny
Like story
anecdote
time.
or
Yeah.
story time that may or may not have anything to do with cheerleading, that might just be on my mind at the moment. Sometimes I'll jot something down on a note on my phone that I'm like, oh, I should talk about this on an intro to the podcast. It's like my thoughts on things that wouldn't take up a whole episode. So I guess that's sort of the entertainment factor if I'm being intentional about being entertaining. And but I don't do an episode at all. I don't even put it on my whiteboard as an episode idea if it doesn't have information that's going to help cheer parents specifically. So whether it's a podcast episode or a social media post or anything, the first question that I always ask myself is, how is this going to serve my community?
Mhm.
And if I don't have the answer to that, it doesn't see the light of day. So I'd like to think that I try to put in the information first and then kind of add my zhuzh, especially when I get on rants about things on podcasts. I feel like that's when I'm entertained, when I just fly off the handle about something and rant to my camera alone in my office about something about cheer. So
Yeah. You had I don't know if you call it a rant, but you had one where you were in the bathroom. That doesn't sound right.
I know what you're about to say.
You were in the bathroom doing your makeup and you were like, this time of cheer when, between your choreography, your tryouts and
Oh, yes.
choreography, when everybody's getting frustrated, no, what is happening? We're not doing anything. And I was like, man, that is right on the money right there. Like, it is difficult. Those kids, like, I've even had my kids like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I'm
Mhm.
done. It's hot out here. It's August or July, and we're just working on the same thing, or it's a lot of conditioning, and I didn't make the team I wanted. And, it's a lot. Yeah. So I thought that one was good. I don't know if that was a rant, but I felt like, and then
I
by the
actually got
end, your makeup was done, which was amazing. I was like,
I
"Whoa,
actually
she's
got
ready."
a little bit of flack for that because everyone was like, "Why do you need like, why is this so long? It's because you're doing your makeup. Your makeup is so distracting." And I'm like, "Well, I was doing it while I was talking about while I was doing my makeup. Like, what do you what do you
Really?
want me to
I
do?"
didn't find it distracting at all.
Well,
Good.
and that's from my own experience of my daughter. I didn't notice it until, again, my husband was like, and my daughter would say like, "I'm gonna quit cheer next season," or "I don't wanna do this anymore." And I would go, "Oh, no, like, what do we do? It's only August, it's only September. Like, should I plan for her not to do it next season?" And by about ninth grade, my husband was like, "She says this every August,
Mhm.
and it ends up being fine." And I'm like, "You know what? You're right. You're right." And so then I started watching the rest of her high school years, specifically in All-Star, because in the fall in high school, you're at school, there's football games, and you have competitions sooner than All-Star. So
Mhm.
I started paying attention to All-Star and going, yeah, there's really nothing exciting going on because it's back to school and you're done with choreography and now you're just running reps and building up your stamina. And that's not fun, especially
Mm.
when you're 9, 10, 11 years old and really don't understand what's on the other side of what you're doing.
Mhm.
And so I could see how it's easy to want to quit because it's just not fun anymore. You're sick of your teammates. It's not a new team anymore. You have your choreography, or maybe you have your music. And so I'm interested in always hearing from coaches like, how do you keep your athletes motivated and inspired during that time? And the carrots that the no pun intended, like the backflips that they are doing to keep their athletes motivated during that time of year is phenomenal.
Yeah. My youngest struggled her first year on a full team, like a full year team. And she was, I think it was like mini elite level 1 or something. And she didn't like that. She still doesn't like the conditioning. And one day she would cry every practice during the summer. And her coach, I guess, told the gym manager, and the gym manager called me in and they were like, we can't have it. We can't have her cry every time. So she came home and I said, if you don't want to do it, we won't do it. So you need to go to sleep, sleep on it and see how you feel in the morning. And this girl woke up in the morning and said, I don't want to do it. And I'm like, what? You don't mean that?
I
Because I
slept.
always tell them, if
I
you
don't
don't
wanna do
do
it.
cheer, I could still go to the cheer comps. Like, I'm not worried about it.
Yeah. Well, look at me. I'm still showing up. I'm just a creepy adult without a cheerleader at cheer competitions. But yeah, I really think if there were a time to take that conversation actually seriously, there's a small window, but February, March is kind of like if they are really hating it in February and March, I think that's the time to go, okay, maybe it's time for a break. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, you really don't know until evaluation week. I've seen so many athletes say they're quitting cheer and
Show up.
show up mid-evaluation week changing their mind. I mean, my
Yeah.
daughter has retired twice and it keeps pulling her back. So you just never know.
Yeah, you never know. That evaluation week is always interesting. Like, who's going to show up? Look who's here in the parking lot. We didn't think you were coming back.
I still have FOMO. And with our old gym, this past evaluation season, my daughter's been graduated from high school since 2022. And even just this past evaluation season, I was texting the director. I'm like, so where are we at? Like, what teams do we have? And they'll do their team announcements. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like, what's behind this? And, oh, you have a junior 5. That's so cool. And I stopped in the middle of the conversation and I was like, when do you think I'm going to stop doing this? Like, when do you think I'm going to stop texting you and being so interested in evaluation week? She's like, I hope never. Like, okay, good. Because I don't see an end to this anytime soon. I don't know why I'm so invested.
Yeah, I really like evaluation week, and Top Gun does this thing, at least ours does, where they're like, guess the names, and they put out little clues, which I'm sure a lot of gyms do. And so I guess every year I put out like a whole list and one of the teams or names, right? Because sometimes they switch up the names, right? Of the teams is I want one to be called grenade launchers, and they just won't do it. They won't do it. And this year they have a youth level 3. And I did a logo for grenade launchers, and the E was a 3, and they won't do it. And I'm just very upset about it. This is my 3rd or 4th year asking for grenade launchers. They won't do it.
It sounds dangerous.
It does. It sounds like I don't want to go up against them.
I feel like the music producers could have a really good time making a mix with grenade launchers.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could get on board with that campaign.
Thank you. They won't do it. And then, they laugh at me every year because, we're going to bring in grenade launchers, and they don't. It's a joke. I get upset, and I know she's going to listen to this and laugh because every year I'm like, come on, grenade launchers is really good.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
Let's make it happen.
So what advice would you give someone looking to start their own podcast? It's very time consuming.
I mean, I would say have at least 5 episodes recorded before you even start the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm on episode like 130-ish now. And if I am not ahead in content, there's just something there's a block. So if I don't have something for next Monday, Thursday will roll around, Friday will roll around, Saturday will roll around. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about on Monday. I don't, so, and if you have that kind of pressure, I think that it makes it harder to give that quality content that serves your audience. No show is perfect. And I'm in a group chat with Jason and Dan, and we've all had those moments where like, I need something for my show like in 2 days. Can one of you help?
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say try to stay ahead and batch your recordings. I try to I'm working my way up to only doing 1 recording day a month.
Mm-hmm.
Right now it's 2 recording days a month. And it's so great to just not have to worry about what's going to be on the show in 2 or 3 days or tomorrow. So that's probably the best piece of advice that I could give somebody, starting a podcast. And just keep at it, because it's not easy to start a podcast. It's not easy to keep up with a podcast. So you just got to keep chugging away at it.
Yeah. One of the most difficult things I have found for myself is listening to myself or seeing myself. Like my husband always, when he's editing and doing all the things, he's like, listen to this. And I'm like, please don't make me do it. It is cringe-worthy, nails on a blackboard. Do not make me listen to myself on this podcast. Literally,
I used to not either. You get used to that, really. I subscribed to my own podcast on Spotify to see what alerts and notifications look like, and I wanted to see how it looked in the feed. So every now and then I'll be listening to like my true crime podcasts and an episode will end and then suddenly the Cheer Mom podcast comes on and I'm like, oh gosh, like I need to change this. But yesterday it just turned, I didn't have my phone next to me and I was like, I can listen to this for 5 minutes. And I think you will get used to listening to yourself, but I think you should listen to yourself every now and then because I've picked up on things that I'm like, oh, I need to talk faster or
Yeah.
just things like that where but now I'm like, oh, hey, I did that pretty good. And good job with the vocals, Kristen. So
I sound okay.
quality control. It's never a bad thing.
What do you think, and we're just going to go back and forth here with the questions. What do you think is the biggest misconception of competitive cheer?
That it's all about glitter and crazy, uneducated cheer moms. I think those are
And it's not a sport.
hand in hand.
It's not a sport.
Yeah, I think that since the Netflix show that has been pretty well squashed. We still have a ways to go. But even when they're talking about the athleticism of cheerleading, any journalist or any legacy media outlet seems to throw in the word glitter and talk about that one cheer mom in the 90s who hired a hitman to, kill the daughter's teammate or whatever.
In Texas, right? Was that in Texas?
I'm
I think
sure,
it was.
I'm sure it was Texas or Florida. Those are like the two biggest cheer states. So
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's like really enough is enough. Let's move on.
Yeah. And to be honest, my daughter's boyfriend, my oldest now, her boyfriend doesn't live far from the gym, and he's come to see her and watch her at practices, and he's turned to me, he's like, I'd be passed out by now. And he plays football and basketball. He's like, I would be passed out. I don't think I could do that. The things that they do, like again and again and again, and the conditioning in between doing your routine. And he's like, I'd be done. I'm like, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lot of hard work.
Yeah, it is.
He says that she has bigger quads than he does.
That's great. I love it.
How do you approach sensitive topics on your podcast?
Very, very carefully. I try
Too
to.
much about it because I feel like nobody listens to mine. But I feel like with you and Jason, like definitely people are listening. Like, hey, she said this, and they pick it apart, I'm sure.
Yeah, going back to that huge episode with all of the Rockstar Cheer stuff and all of the lawsuits, I really try to tie everything into, okay, what does this mean for us as we're driving to practice today? What does this mean for our athletes and our local gyms? And for me, all roads lead back to the gym owners most of the time, because it's easy for us to get worked up about these big things and what are these governing organizations going to do. And I'm like, you need to be asking questions from your coaches and gym owners. And this is what you need to be looking for. And it's so funny because after that episode, my former cheer director texted me and said, I just had a new cheer mom call me and say, I heard this on a podcast. What is your policy on ABC? She's like, you've made it. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. Sorry, not sorry. But I had this moment of like, oh, wow, like people are listening to what I'm saying. So I don't take that lightly. It is something that I carry very carefully. And so I try not to get too upset or too bought into one side or another, because I think we have enough of that in cheer where we take sides.
Yeah.
And I'm not a journalist by any means, but I do try to be fair and say, okay, well, this is this side of the story, but what if we thought about it in this context? And I'm not saying that I think about it one way or another, but there are different sides to every story. And we may not know the truth, but how are we going to apply it to our own lives as cheer moms, as cheer athletes, as cheer coaches? And so I try to approach it from that angle rather than just adding to the noise with controversial statements.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a sensitive situation always.
Yeah, it's
like
really
when you-
hard.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what trends do you see in cheerleading? How do you address them in your platform?
Well, we've already talked about the high teased pony. Gosh, there are so many. I had a hard time with this question. Because I don't see myself as somebody who's in the industry, setting standards in the industry. Half the time I'm not paying attention. Something happened over the weekend. My daughter was telling me something about a big gym, and I was like, "Oh, I had no idea." I think last season I called Revelation Revolution, and I was
No.
so embarrassed because it's what came out of my mouth. But anyway, so I'm probably not the authority on on trends. I do see more businesses paying attention to the cheer industry. And I guess that's the area where I can speak to the most, is that there are not only cheer brands, but national and global brands that are going, what's going on over here? And what is this cheer industry? Because we've been such a small, and we still are a small industry, relatively speaking, but we've kind of been in our own little bubble. And if you notice, a lot of the event producers, uniform makers, gym owners, they all know each other or cheered with each other or grew up in cheerleading and then became the owner of an apparel company. And so it's all been kind of, what's the word? Incestuous is, I hate that word, but it's all been kind of intertwined within itself. And now there is a trend, if you will, of businesses noticing the cheer industry and seeing that there's this whole niche audience whose dollars they want to compete for.
Yeah.
So that is something that I think we're going to see more in the industry. I've noticed even just the handful of events that I've been to this season that names like Gatorade are making their way in, and national brands are placing ads in very strategic places. And so I think we're going to see more of that.
Yeah. That's cool though that they're getting that recognition for sure.
I really hope that it helps reduce the cost of cheerleading, whether it's reducing the cost of event fees or making scholarship funds available. I really do hope that that's what happens. And I think in order for that to happen, we parents need to show them that the cheer community is supportive and patronize these businesses too.
Yeah. It's expensive. Big time.
Yeah.
And then we got to pay to get in.
Oh, tell me about it.
So my next question, can you share a personal story from your cheerleading career that shaped you to who you are today? And you didn't cheer, right?
I
Did you
did
cheer?
not.
You didn't cheer.
I
But
was a choir kid, a band nerd. I did Texas drill team for 1 year and absolutely hated it. And so but I never cheered.
What did you play in the band?
I played the flute.
I played the clarinet.
You're better than me. We woodwind sections got to stick together though. Yeah, and that's part of like the world of cheer is so foreign to me, and it's so funny because now I have these business calls and people will start name dropping people in the cheer industry, and I know that they're trying to show like how cool they are when they do all this name dropping, and I'm like, I have no idea who that is. And I feel really dumb because I'm like, that sounds like somebody important.
That
But
I should maybe know about, but
no
I
clue.
don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played the clarinet. I always cheered since junior high, but for band, that was always one of my electives. I didn't do the marching band because I conflicted with cheer. But yeah, I played it throughout high school and junior high.
Yep. I did band my freshman year, and then I did a lot of choir after that and a little bit of theater, and I loved those things.
Yeah, my kids do theater during the summer and they love it. And I know that if one day they would not do cheer, they would definitely just go all in on theater. They love it.
That does not surprise me. I've met many cheerleaders who are fantastic actors and actresses that
Hmm.
have a future in theater and in show business if they want it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see them. Speaking of businesses, what motivated you to start your own business? Seeing as I've been a consumer of your jewelry line.
I come from a family of entrepreneurs. I married an entrepreneur and didn't consider myself an entrepreneur. I knew I had creative ideas and I like to be creative, but at the end of the day, this is going to be so bad. I can't believe I'm saying this. I am a pretty terrible employee. I do not like anyone to be the boss of me.
Hmm.
And I think that's what motivates me to keep going as an entrepreneur, because when the jewelry line gets challenging, when the podcast is time consuming and I want to quit, I'm like, it's either do this or go find a job and work for somebody else.
Hmm.
That's all the motivation I need.
I know it's not easy working for other people for sure,
Some
but it's
people do
gotta
it
be
really well,
super.
but I don't.
It's got to be intense working for yourself, running that business.
It's a whole different kind of, yeah, it's a different kind of of intense. I don't think people realize how lonely being an entrepreneur and a business owner really can be. Yes, I have the flexibility of schedule, but I never stop working.
Hmm.
And I think the one thing that I really miss about being in the workplace or corporate America is the collaboration with other people. We joke about how this meeting could have been an email, but I really enjoy bouncing ideas off of people and going, well, what do you think about this? And I know that I don't have all the answers and that I can have a great idea, but then somebody else can come along and add to it. And so that's something that I really miss, that I'm trying to build up the business so that I have a team so that I can make them listen to my ideas. No, but it's nice just to be like, what do you think about this? And for somebody to have the context behind that, especially in this industry, in the cheer industry,
Hmm.
there are very few people who like get it. And so that's one thing I think that I totally have not answered your question, but um I I do enjoy having my own business. I like having ownership in something, and I have control issues too. So there's that. But it's the life that I think I was made for. So
Yeah. How do you manage your time, like between your jewelry line and the podcast, and you do the photography as well? So the photography, is that just like cheerleaders, or it's whoever?
well,
Like, are you out here doing weddings? What's
you're
going
like
on?
reading my mail. I have ADHD and I have terrible time management skills. So that is something that as I go into 2025, I need to improve. It's funny that you pegged all of the elements of my business, because earlier this year I was like, I've got to drop something. I have to let something go. I cannot keep doing podcast, jewelry, photography, and social media. Like I can't. But I kind of, in a good way, I backed myself into a corner with all of those things, because the podcast is doing better than it ever has, and I have more sponsors interested than ever, and so I have contracts that I have to fulfill, and so
Mhm.
there's no dropping the podcast. The the jewelry line it started out as just kind of a side thing that fell into my lap, and then because the cheer community is so tightly knit and so supportive and loves to be micro influencers or full on influencers and partner with brands, especially cheer brands, I was gleefully convinced to start an ambassador program. So now there are over 150 ambassadors for TCC jewelry.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, I would let go of the jewelry, but I feel like I was put on this earth, not just feel like, I believe that I was put on this earth to create community with women and girls. And
Mhm.
the TCC jewelry community, the ambassador community, I think on a daily basis about how want to I don't want to let them down, and I want to create an environment where they feel like they are thriving and they are learning, and that lights me up inside, and that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. And so it's like, well, I'm not going to just shut the jewelry thing down and leave my ambassadors hanging, because they're the people that I love the most in this phase of my life, and the moms are incredible and so supportive, and so that's not going anywhere. And then photography was just supposed to be kind of the bridge to get to where I needed to be to pay the bills until these other things took off. But I love photography so much. If I could do it for free, I would.
Mhm.
And if I'm going to be at cheer events with the jewelry, I might as well bring my camera. There's a couple of cheer events that I'm going to this season that I'm not bringing the jewelry, and it's a weekend full of photo shoots. And I didn't realize when I started the photography arm of the business that cheer moms love to book photo shoots. And I have so much fun with these moms and girls and connecting with them in that way and doing something that I love. And heck, I'm going to be there anyway.
Yeah.
So, so that's where I am right now. And I was able to hire someone to work kind of on a contract part-time basis for me this year to help me with things like paying my bills, and
Yeah.
organizing my emails. And I've missed out on a couple of opportunities because I'm just not good at responding to messages. I think you had to message me like 3 times, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like I responded to that in my head like 5 times, but I just haven't responded." And so yeah, so I have a somebody on the team that is like, hey, like you have that email that you haven't answered yet. They
Mhm.
want to know blah, blah, blah. And sometimes I'll just send her a voice note and be like, can you just respond with this? Like, and sometimes it's just easier. I have that kind of neurospiciness where email just really stresses me out. I'd rather Marco Polo you all day or send you a voice memo to answer your question. But I'm getting better about that. So to that was a long answer, but practically speaking, I am trying to do more to delegate. So I'm terrible at asking for help. I'm terrible at delegating. It's like, it's not that I think that I'm the only one who can do this. It's I don't know what I don't know what someone else can do.
Right.
I don't know what to delegate. So I try to bring people into my corner where that don't mind me like brain dumping on them all of the things that I have to do and letting them go, I know how to do that. Let me do that. Or I'll figure out how to do that. You worry about this. So I tell people like I just need to be managed. So manage me and boss me around. And then I also have it's an AI app called Motion,
Mhm.
and that saved me this summer. Um, it's you put in all of your appointments and all of your to-dos and your projects, and it puts it
Organized
all
it.
together
Yeah.
like by priority and by like I'll 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 think that I'm going to fly to the moon and back in one work day. And so I'll put in all of these tasks into motion, like this has to get done today. And I'll look at the list that it puts together for me. And then it's like, hey, there are not enough hours in today for you to do this. So we moved it to the next day. And I'm like, oh,
Thank you.
so yeah, okay, whatever. I'll show you motion. So that's something that I'm definitely working on and trying to be intentional about, because for small business owners, they know burnout is a real thing. And if you're not careful, it can happen really quickly. And then you could hate everything. So I definitely don't want to get to that point, because I'm loving what I'm doing and I want it to be sustainable for my sake, but also for my community's sake, so I can keep serving them well.
Yeah. With the ambassadors, I saw that you obviously selected ambassadors and then you sent them like little boxes that they got to open, and that was pretty cool. How did you do that selection with your ambassadors?
It's still a process that I'm honing in on. This is basically the second time that we've opened up applications to everyone. So I look at, I ask them a series of questions in their application, and I look at how they answer those questions. Like, why do you want to be an ambassador? And
Mhm.
what's important to you? And social media following is nice, but we really do look at their account and not only what they're posting, but how their audience or their followers are engaging with them. I don't believe in a minimum follower count
Yeah.
because you can have 10,000 followers and really only be reaching and impacting 100 of them, and you can have 500 followers and be reaching and impacting 100 of them.
Mhm.
So I really make a big point of saying, hey, it doesn't matter how many followers you have or if you have social media at all, but tell me how you're going to talk to your community about the cheer collection and why it's important to you. So that's another thing. And then recently I said, "Hey, I love influencers, and let's all be real with each other. Like I need you to help me with my small business, and you are my best customers and my best way of marketing, but I
Mhm.
don't want this relationship to just be transactional, and I don't want it to just be you helping me or my business benefiting. I want to serve you too, and I want to leave you better than I found you." So that's why this cheer season is the first year that we have different groups of ambassadors, and there's a small group of ambassadors that I really want to engage in leadership training and social media training if they want it, and connect them with other mentors and have a big sister, little sister situation where they're being mentored, but they're also learning how to mentor and learning how to be leaders. So I look for character qualities. I look for who is engaging with the brand beyond just their minimum requirement. Are they cheering on other girls? Are they getting creative with how they're talking about the jewelry? And are they a positive influence in the world around them? So it's not where I'm just checking boxes, and it's still kind of fluid, but I know potential when I see it. And that's something that's really exciting to me, is to get to be part of these girls' lives in that way and say, hey, we're going to talk about jewelry and how to share it on social media, but let's also talk about mental blocks and
Yeah.
how we all feel alone. And let's talk about mental health, and let's learn how to be leaders in our community. So that's what I get excited about.
Yeah. That's awesome too. Like, and it's not just you're going by a piece of paper or the numbers that, like you said, of the followers or whatnot. Like, you're really making a difference with these young ladies and their mothers as well.
I hope so. That's
Yeah.
my goal.
Speaking of social media, how is it that it plays a role in how your business is growing? Like you say, well, I have to, apart from the photography and the jewelry, you got to keep up with the social media. Do you have someone helping you with that, or it's all you?
For the most part, it's all me, and it really shouldn't be that way. I did hire someone to just kind of help with some things here and there, but ultimately I s- I was not very good at like sending her the content she needed to put it together, and so
Mhm,
that's on me. That's my whole, I got to work on that. Social media is not everything, but when you are marketing a business or trying to establish a brand or even trying to get out a specific message, I think of Dana Toll. I think that's how you say her last name, on Twitter or X or whatever. She, in her bio, she says she's a victim advocate, and specifically in cheerleading. And she talks about cheerleading, and she talks about abuse in cheerleading. And so social media has been very key. And especially in the cheer world, again, there's just something about this industry that really latches on to social media. And
mhm,
I believe it's the cheer community is the only reason why I have any social media following on any platform. And so it's a big role. I'd like for it to be a bigger part of what I do, because I love it the most.
mhm,
Um, but it's, I mean, think about it. I've met people on social media who are my friends now, and I get to see what the kids are thinking about and what cheer moms are thinking about.
mhm,
I haven't, my daughter did just come out of retirement, but there was a moment where, and a lot of people asked me her senior year of high school, well, what are you going to do about the Cheer Mom blog once she's done with cheer? And I was like, well, I don't know. Like, I still know what I know, and I can still talk about my experience, but I don't know. And there was a point where I was like, ooh, am I going to become irrelevant? Like, how am I going to keep up? It is not hard when you're in the Facebook groups and when you post something that speaks to them. The cheer world they'll tell you where they'll tell you where you
they sure
stand,
will. Yeah.
and whether you're speaking to them or whether you are full of crap, they'll tell you. So it plays a huge role in everything that I do, whether I'm creating or consuming. I want to hear what people have to say. So Again, I don't think it's everything, but if we're talking about growing a business or getting a message out, you really do need to figure out what story you're going to tell
Mhm.
on your socials. And that's something that I recently told my ambassadors. It's great to post a pretty picture and say Sunday fun day, but what's your goal and who are you serving and what story do you want to tell? And I think that that's where a lot of people in cheerleading or otherwise miss the mark on social media and wonder why, like, why am I not getting followers? Why am I not getting engagement? It's because you look like everyone else and you need to be telling a story that is true to you,
Mhm.
because people know when it's not authentic. And when you are true to yourself and your story, you're going to attract other people who can relate and have similar experiences.
Yeah, even though it's through social media, they know who is
Mhm.
authentic and who isn't, and like you said, who's full of it and who's not. So
Correct.
yeah, it's a lot. My husband always tells me you don't do enough on your social media. I'm like, okay, I don't have the
It's
time.
hard. I mean, I was talking to a mom who has a daughter who's a rebel ambassador, and the mom 2 hours a day on
Mhm.
social media for her rebel ambassador, and I believe her. So, yeah, it's a lot, and you have a really cool full-time job, so don't beat yourself up too much.
I wanted to ask you, I saw you at All Star Worlds interviewing someone last All Star Worlds.
Mhm.
And whenever I go to a cheer comp, the cheer moms, the two that listen to my podcast, are like, when are you going to get like a little booth and interview people? And I'm like, well, what about when I have to go? Like, our teams at our gym are going constantly. So, and we always get up and cheer every team in the gym. So, I don't know how to handle that. Is that the dumbest thing? What do I do? I just can't get up and leave, go cheer and then I come back. What if somebody comes up to the booth and I'm not there? And now your daughter's back to cheering.
That
So how
is
are you gonna
tricky.
handle it?
So that's an advantage that I have when my daughter was retired.
Mhm,
And now when I go to, she doesn't go to very many competitions, but when I'm at competitions where she's not competing, it's a lot easier.
mhm,
I have to say that I wouldn't recommend doing that when you have when you have an athlete
mhm.
actively competing, but you know there's another Top Gun mom, she's Top Gun Orlando, that is involved in the cheer business world, who also has an athlete. And it's not for the faint of heart. You
Yeah,
do run back and forth. You do have long days. There were a couple of times where, yeah, I had to go watch my daughter. I had to go take care of something. And we would either do a be right back sign or have somebody just watch the booth for like 5 or 10 minutes and say like she'll be right back. So those are the options. Yeah,
yeah.
it's not for the faint of heart.
And then I have 2, so it's a
Yeah,
lot.
constant. You really got to, Rosie, you really got to weigh the pros and the cons there. Like, what's going to be in it for you for
Yeah.
expending yourself in that way?
Mhm. Yeah, I gotta think about it. So what do you and your podcast with the business, what do you think you'll achieve with the cheerleading community? Like, what's the goal there? And you mentioned some things already, like obviously making a difference in the athletes and their parents' lives.
The ultimate goal, if I'm making a vision board, it's having community with regular meetups. I have a dream of having some kind of amazing cheer mom
Weekend.
party event. Yeah. Or I keep
Cruise.
trying to figure out how we could do it the night before a competition starts. And we're all there anyway. Like, let's get together and have a chat and
Mhm.
maybe have somebody inspirational come and talk to us, or just like answer questions, where we're not anonymous in the Facebook group,
Mhm.
and say, well, like, do you ever deal with this, or do you ever feel like that? That's the ultimate goal. I would love to, I think I have a book in me. I would love
Mhm.
to write a book. I Other than that, I'm just here for the ride and to see where this journey is going to take me, because I never thought that I would be sitting here with a whole backdrop behind me and have people want to meet me and have a podcast that businesses want to pay to be mentioned. I always dreamed of it, but
Mhm.
I never thought that it would get there in cheer. I
Yeah.
tried other podcasts and other messages, and always kind of pushing cheer off to the side and going like, this is almost over. I can't wait to not be a cheer mom anymore. And it turns out, like, the one thorn in my side for 12 years is the is the thing that has given me the most life since 2020. So but really it's about creating community. And I really want people, especially women, to know that whether it's in cheerleading or having a moody teenager or feeling depressed during a competition day, that they are not alone.
Mhm. Wouldn't that be awesome if we had somewhere to go like that, like before maybe All-Star Worlds, before the competition starts. And I know they divide it in between like juniors and youth teams for that Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But to have like, hey, here's a meetup. This is what we're going to be talking about. Come join us. Bunch of cheer moms.
The
That would
only
be
thing that I
awesome.
have to figure out, I've been talking about this, there's some things in the works I'm trying to make happen. The only thing we have to figure out is childcare. So maybe the college athletes can come and earn some money, and we can have them do activities. I know that there are some moms that are fine to just leave their kids in the hotel room with a
Mhm.
movie, and that's fine. But there are some minis that we got to think about. So hopefully one day we can make it
Yeah.
happen.
It would be good if maybe the older athletes can, what if you say,
Mhm.
come and if you bring your child, we'll charge this amount for childcare and then divide that in between the athletes that do volunteer for the childcare. I'm more
Just
worried.
got
Are
to
you?
find a room to do it.
Yeah. Big enough for all the cheer moms
Right.
to join. Who are some of your biggest inspirations in cheerleading or maybe even podcasting? I didn't know you had a podcast before this one.
Well, Rosie, nobody did. I'll just put it like that. Like, my mom and a few people that I went to church with knew.
Was it about cheer?
No, no. I got on board the kind of the mommy blogger train just a little too late, and just didn't find my people.
Mhm.
I was talking too broadly about motherhood, and it just wasn't. I talked to some really cool people, but it just didn't work.
Yeah.
So, biggest inspirations in cheerleading, I think that has definitely changed over time as I've met more people. Right now, well, of course, my bestie, Justin Carrier. I just love the guy. I love Justin Carrier so much. And I almost have like an obsession with Justin. He's the real deal, and he loves cheerleading, and he loves your kids. and he is hilarious. And he's like my kind of people. I just love him. But also Victor and Kristen Rosario, I am so inspired by them, not because they win world championships, not because they have thousands of athletes under the brand name that they created, but the way that they build character in their
Mhm.
athletes, the way that they run their program, the Top Gun parents are like none I've ever experienced. There's something special about them and what they're creating beyond just cheerleading that I am always gushing about. I was at that competition in Tampa, and there were some TGLC athletes staying in the room across the hall from me, and the walls were thin. They weren't doing anything wrong,
Mhm.
but I could hear them talking, and I'm like, okay, I want to listen, but I'm not going to listen. But I like, I'm kind of listening, and like, I was thinking like, here's the moment where the magic is going to be lost for me. Like, I know I'm going to hear one of them say something crass, or I'm going to hear them doing something they shouldn't, and I'm going to be so disappointed. And not to say that every student athlete or every team or every program is perfect,
Mhm.
but I was like, I please don't do anything stupid, you know. And what I heard was them encouraging each other, was them
Mhm.
diagnosing the issues that they'd had in their routine or with their stunt group in a loving way and not blaming people. And this is where no one's watching. They
Yeah.
don't know that I can hear them. They're just having a conversation. And even just walking down the hall, I guess there was a bunch of Top Gun world athletes on my floor, and they were all saying, I love you. They were giving each other pointers and tips, and that's special. So the Rosarios are leaders in the industry many in so many ways, from choreography to coaching style. One thing that I think that we need to talk more about is what in the world are you doing to develop this kind of character in your athletes? um, I think we need to be learning more about that. So
I
they
think
are a
it's their
huge inspiration to
coaching.
me.
Yeah, I think it's their coaching. And I think um I don't know. I think one of the biggest things that I see every season and the coaches growing from our small Top Gun that we are a part of is that they have that big Top Gun coaches meeting, and
Mm.
they just do what it looks like from social media, a bunch of bonding things and what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of
Like
like
team building and
yeah,
rope
just
courses and
yeah,
yeah, a
and
lot of
little things like that.
I see other large programs doing that I don't see the same results from. And that's not to throw shade at any other programs. I think that there's something very special about what they do, and the cheer community is better because they're in it.
And maybe
So,
it's just the name too, that once I don't know, once a coach is part of that family, they know they're held to
mm,
that expectation.
I think that
And
they also take care of their people. I think that based on the things that I've heard behind the scenes, they
mhm,
take care of their people, and their people know that Coach K and Victor, they have their back. They're going to hold them accountable, and they truly truly love them. You don't see very many programs with reunions as big as
mhm,
Top Gun's reunion. You don't hear about students who have Kristen Rosario on their emergency contact list, or that the school counselor is calling Coach K about bad grades before they're calling the actual mother, and that the athlete is more afraid of Coach K finding out about their failing grade than they are about anyone else. And that's not because they're afraid of Coach K. It's because they value her and they care about what she thinks about them. And they know that she's going to hold them to a standard. And that takes putting your whole life into cheerleading like nothing else. So, yeah, I could go on and on. Big fan.
Big fan. Yeah. If you could collaborate with anyone, whether in cheerleading or podcasting, who would it be and why?
If I could collaborate with anyone, well, I mean, I've already collaborated with Dan the Man Cotton. I've already collaborated with Let's Talk Cheer, Jason Larkins. That's a really tough one. I could go in so many different directions. Okay, the first person that came to mind before you even finished the question is Lin-Manuel Miranda. He's like my answer for everything. Like, if you could have lunch with anyone, dead or alive, I'm like, Lin-Manuel Miranda. And not only because he is a musical theater nerd, if there ever was one that I feel like matches my nerd energy when it comes to musical theater, we're the same age. He has accomplished so much, and he's an artist and a creative, and I think I've watched every interview he's ever done, and I have a feeling that he and I could relate when it comes to headspace and the things that you create in the process. So I've always been eager to have a conversation with him about the creative process, because podcasting and being a content creator, that takes a lot of creativity. And whether you are making a reel for Instagram or like writing the freaking soundtrack for Mufasa, it all takes creative energy. And so I would love to, I mean, I would love to like eat from Lin-Manuel Miranda's trash. Like, I'm not afraid to say it. Like I would.
Are you guys best friends and he doesn't know it?
No, I have more respect for him than that. I would say Justin Carrier and I are best friends, and he doesn't know it. Although he knows it more now because he made the mistake of giving me his number. And so he called me, and I'm like, and safe. And so I'm like, hey, Justin, what are you doing? What do you think about this? Like, what, are you going to be at this competition this weekend where I'm going to be at? Like, do you need any help with anything? And so we're best friends, and he has a best friend, but he's my best friend for sure.
All right. So guess what time it is?
Oh gosh. Okay. I'm nervous. Okay. I am a classic overthinker. So, okay.
These aren't even hard. Everybody always gets nervous, and it's literally like one word answers. Don't you worry. Here we are. Send off round.
Okay. I'm ready.
Ready. Number 1. What is your favorite Worlds team?
TGLC. Sorry. Everyone gets so mad at me when I say that, but they are.
I like 005.
Oh, yeah, they're very good. They're very good. Senior elite.
Yeah,
senior elite. They're very good. I have to say to all of my CA fam and friends, and I've said this to some TGLC athletes, Cheetahs look very good this season.
Ooh.
And they don't sleep on Cheetahs. So
I bet they looked good last season. Was it last season?
They did. They looked great last season. TGLC didn't win until Worlds last season.
Yeah.
So don't sleep on Cheetahs. There are lots of very qualified Worlds teams that I love watching, but TGLC by far is just, the showmanship and the creativity. I never get tired of watching them.
They're pretty awesome. Okay, question 2. What gives you the ick about cheer? Or maybe a cheer competition. I have many.
Yeah, I have many as well. It's pretty well known that I hate the Cupid Shuffle. I think we need to abolish the Cupid Shuffle at cheer competitions. But I'll tell you what really gives me the ick is the lack of awareness of space, like lack of spatial awareness at cheer competitions. I know that hair sometimes needs to get done at the venue for whatever reason, but do you have to do it like right in the middle of the hallway?
Mm-hmm.
I understand that you need an outlet, but honestly, there are battery operated curling irons now. Like there's so many different solutions than clogging up all of the common spaces. That really cooks my grits every time.
I
not in
can't
a good
stand
way.
when people don't know where they're going. And it's one small hallway and everybody's like, move. And then, of course, you can't move because people are doing their hair and makeup on the side there.
I
Can't get
have
out
a
of the
whole
way.
episode where I did like, please stop doing these things. And that's one of them. Like, walk with purpose, people.
Yeah. Get to
Walk
where you're
with
going.
purpose. Even if you don't know where you're going, walk with purpose until you can like veer off. Like we're on a freeway, guys. We're on a pedestrian freeway in these convention centers. Do not stop until you have a shoulder to pull off to.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's another one. There are lots of icks about cheer
Yeah. And
competitions.
can we stop like trying to take that picture at All-Star Worlds, where on the
On the
stairs?
steps?
Why are we doing this? The
It
whole
is pretty
team?
cool. That is one thing that I'll have to part ways with you on. The steps are really cool at All-Star Worlds and at NCA. It's iconic.
Yeah.
I think it's done more efficiently at NCA, probably because of the layout of the venue, that the steps are like out of the way, whereas at All-Star Worlds, they're like the main entrance to the competition.
Mm-hmm.
It did get really clogged last year. And I think people just need to understand that there is more than one way to get into the venue.
Mm-hmm.
And also, there needs to be like a 3-minute per team time limit. Like
I feel like
decide your
there should be a
formation
sign-up
before
sheet
you get
for
there.
Yeah. There needs to be a sign-up sheet for who's going to be there.
That would be nice.
So they know, okay, I'm 3 to 3:03, and that's when my team is good to go to take these pictures. My daughter's team, she double teamed one year, and one of the teams went on really, really late, and awards were really late. And then they went to the stairs and took pictures, but it was like empty already. It was like 10:30 at night. But other than that, there needs to be some sort of security and sign up sheet where you go and come back with your team at this time.
Well, I think that'd be hard to follow through because competition times run late sometimes. But my message to cheer parents would be, and coaches would be like, try to do it on a day when you're not competing, like go the night before or early in the morning after, or I mean, there's not a 100% guaranteed way around it, but there are some things that we can do to be more efficient.
Who has been your favorite guest on your podcast?
I can't. That's not fair. That's not fair or nice. My daughter Abby, she's my favorite. She's my favorite person in the world.
And she was just on your podcast.
She was just on talking about college cheerleading.
Mhm.
She's been on it before, and yeah, she's my actual favorite. I love her so much. My husband's like, "What about me?" I'm like, yeah.
You're fine. My husband has been on my podcast with the cheer dads and all the
My
things.
husband has also been on my podcast, and he's great. He's great. He's secondary famous. People come up to him and they're like, "I tried your tips on how to sneak into a competition without paying." I'm like, "Oh my gosh. Please say that louder."
Why is it that the dads do that? This past weekend, we were in Orlando for a competition and we brought our puppy. We have a little mini golden doodle. And we had to pay a fee for the puppy, right? And you pay one flat fee for 7 days. My husband's like, "Why are we paying this fee? Nobody knows this dog is in here. We just put the do not disturb sign. I'm not paying the fee again." So
It's
only the
yeah.
cheer dads. I do have to say, during that episode with the cheer dads, I got an Airbnb to do it in, and they all got there and we ordered Mission Barbecue for them to eat and all the things before we did the podcast. And it's funny to see like a group of men just talking about cheer and the mental toughness and the athleticism of the athletes. And did you see this and this athlete from this team? And did you hear about this? And I'm like, I just sat there and I was like, you would think they're talking about football players in the Super Bowl.
When
They
my
were,
daughter first started, my husband pulled up the video the night after the cheer competition and basically had her like watch tape like football players do on Monday mornings of like, okay, so what do you think went wrong here? And and for him it was yes, it was to help her see
Mhm.
herself perform, but he's like, I want to learn. So like, what is this called? But I have pictures of her as a little girl, and he had his laptop open and they're like watching film is what they call it in
Yeah,
football, like watching film. So yeah, the dads try to play off some of them like they aren't into it, but they're into it.
they're into it. Some of them do. Some of them
Some
still
of them
till
are over the top into it.
we have a few. We have a few, but some still they've been, year 3 and 4 and they're still not into it. So, but they come around.
It's
So,
overwhelming and overstimulating for sure.
yeah. And some people aren't into that. So, what is the craziest thing you've seen a cheer parent do in all your
Oh,
years of cheer mom? The craziest thing. I have some crazy things. I'm like, what is going on with these people?
I've seen I oh, I'm sure I'll think of something after we record, but I've seen my fair share of parents screaming at security. So that's one thing. I saw a mom get really upset and lose her mind over her stroller being allowed in a certain area of the competition venue
Mm.
and caused a scene, and security was called and it was a whole thing, and I was like, is all this over a stroller? Yeah. Um these things usually happen. I have video of cheer moms back in the day that I was with had enough wine to decide that we could all stunt. That was fun. These things usually involve some level of alcohol.
Mhm.
So
And
I've
no food.
seen yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, I've seen cheer parents do some wild things while intoxicated in some form. So
Oh gosh. I'm sure there's more more stories of the cheer parents. Um what's your favorite? Do you like more of an all-star cheer or sideline cheer? Like more of a game day?
I am more of an all-star cheer. I like the entertainment and the pace of all-star
Mm-hmm. I like
and the
game day
showmanship and yeah.
as a
Yeah.
coach. As a coach, I like game day better. But as a mom, all-star cheer is a lot more fun.
A lot of people really enjoy game day. I was never a cheerleader or a coach, so it doesn't register as much with me. I appreciate it. I respect it. I think it should be a division.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of wanting to go watch, I am I'm not like, "Ooh, like what what game day routines can we watch?" I know that sounds terrible. Sounds terrible. Maybe I should.
It is like a whole UCA, NCA thing for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know it could be if you hear the moms, like I would be like, well, they didn't use flags. And yeah. Now that I'm saying it out loud, it sounds pretty ridiculous. They only had 2 signs and 1 megaphone, like
No, I understand, and my daughter did high school and college cheer, UCA, and I do know that the cheer is very significant, and it's
Mhm,
so cool to watch them do what they do. I'm supportive of it. I just think that I need a little bit more entertainment and stimulation than that.
mhm.
But that's just me.
Yeah. What level, is your, daughter in now?
This season, she is on an open co-ed level 4, which is
Okay.
just hilarious because it's these 20 somethings and 30 somethings on a level 4 team hoping to get a summit bid, and it cracks me up. But she is having so much fun because once you get to that age, twisting and some of those world level skills are, I mean, they're hard on your body when you're young,
Mhm,
but keeping up with that on an average body is no joke. So level 4 for them, I mean, they were out of breath. They competed this past weekend. They were out of breath. They were dying, but it's been so fun for me because it's like there's not as much pressure. There's not as
mhm.
much at stake. They can do layouts in their sleep. So it's been really fun to watch her on a level 4 team again.
That sounds like fun. Does she do her own hair now? I assume so.
Oh, she's been doing her own makeup since she was probably 12, maybe a little younger. She, for the most part, she does her own hair. When they ask for braids, she calls in mom, and
Mhm.
I love it. So, but she does her own, well, she has her own apartment now. So
Yeah.
this competition, it was like, okay, I'll meet you there.
Is that
We
weird?
showed up like half hour before they performed and didn't see her till after they competed. So that's a whole new experience. But yeah, she does all of her own things now.
Does she ever wanna coach? Has she ever talked about that?
I'm not sure. I have for years told her that she would make a great coach. I really believe that she would be a great coach.
Mhm.
But she's just in that season of life where she just finished up being a student and a working student and a working student that also does cheer. So there's not a lot of room for for anything else, but we'll see where her journey takes her.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, she's been doing it for a long, long time, it seems.
I also think she'd be a great judge.
Oh, yeah.
She says if she were at cheer events, she'd want to DJ, and she has a mixed board and everything. So she's also a great DJ. So I think she could be great at that too. So there's lots of different roads she could take if she wants to
Yeah.
continue
Lots of
in the
options.
industry. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, That's it. That was our send-off round.
Oh, good. Okay,
That
I
wasn't
did it.
terrible.
Did it. And I kept my answers shorter. I could talk all day. Makes me a
Thank
great
you
podcaster.
so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I
I'm so
really
excited.
enjoyed it.
I'm excited we finally got to do it. I know that I also
you.
like sent you a message and then you were like, okay, and then crickets. And then and I was like, oh, I gotta get back and let her know that we still need to do it for sure.
Well, that's probably on me. Like,
No, I think I forgot to. Life happens and then one day
life
turns into the
happens.
next.
Yeah. I actually, I asked Brad Habermill to be on the podcast, and he emailed right away, and he was like, "Sure, what would we talk about?" And then like months went by, and I hadn't answered. So hopefully he'll come back. Hopefully he'll say yes again. But I was like, oh shoot, like this is what happens when I don't
You get
respond
busy.
to emails and messages. And I hate those influencers when they say like, my DM, I get so many DMs. There was a point in time where I was able to respond to all the DMs, but now Instagram hides a lot of them from me, and so I like don't see them for real.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it just gets really overwhelming, and so I just like shut the app off, and I'm like, I can't do any of it.
Yeah.
So
You got to take some time.
thank you for
Some
being
time
patient
off.
with me. I'm very hard to reach, apparently.
Well, I'm sure I'll see you around.
I hope so.
Yeah.
So. Good luck with your show. We'll have to have you on the Cheer Mom podcast for sure.
That would be fun. Maybe
I
we
would
could
love
meet
that.
up and do it like live
Oh, that could be fun.
at that Cheer Mom get together you're gonna have.
Yeah, and we're gonna put together. Sponsored by, insert your business name here.
Well, thank you so much.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you for having me.
All right, you guys, that is it. Another Cheer Chronicles podcast with Cheer Mom herself, Kristen. Thanks again, and we'll see you and catch you on the sidelines.